The ballroom glowed like something out of a movie. Golden chandeliers, crystal glasses catching the light, violins humming softly under the chatter of the city's finest. It was the kind of event the Mercer family lived for, the kind of night my mother, Vivian Mercer, had spent her entire life perfecting. I stood at the entrance, clutching a small, neatly wrapped box. Inside was a crystal photo frame, something simple, elegant, personal. I'd saved for weeks to buy it. I thought maybe tonight, for their 40th anniversary, they might finally see me. My heels clicked softly on the marble as I took a few steps inside. Conversations faltered. 100 eyes turned. The laughter dimmed, and then my mother's voice, sharp and cold enough to slice through the music. "You don't belong here. Leave." The room froze. Every guest stopped breathing. Even the violins seemed to hesitate mid-note. At first, I thought she was joking. Vivian Mercer loved theatrics, loved making herself the center of every room. But when her lips curled in disdain, I realized she meant every word. "Mother," I started, my voice trembling. She waved her champagne glass dismissively, like swatting a fly. "Richard," she said to my father, her tone syrupy. "Do handle this, won't you?" My father, Richard Mercer, didn't even look at me. His eyes stayed on his drink. His jaw tightened. "Get this beggar out," he said flatly. A murmur rippled through the crowd, shocked gasps, stifled laughs, the thrill of scandal filling the air. I froze where I stood, feeling the heat rise in my chest. My brother, Nathan, avoided my gaze, pretending to check his watch. My sister, Chloe, smirked, crossing her arms like she'd been waiting for this moment all night. The head of security, a tall man in a black suit, stepped toward me. His name tag read, Mark Jensen. His eyes were kind, almost apologetic, but his voice stayed professional. "Ma'am, I'll have to ask you to leave." I wanted to scream, to ask why, to demand an explanation for years of coldness disguised as civility, but no sound came out. My hands were trembling as I clutched the gift. Vivian's voice cut through again, venom sweet as honey. "Take that trash with you." The box slipped from my fingers. The glass shattered against the floor, scattering reflections of light, tiny, broken stars at my feet. Gasps filled the hall. I looked down at the shards and saw my own reflection fractured into pieces. For a long, breathless second, no one moved. Then, from somewhere behind me, a burst of laughter broke the silence. It spread first awkwardly, then freely, as if my humiliation was part of the entertainment. My throat burned. My chest felt hollow. I turned toward the exit, every click of my heels echoing like a drum beat. The grand doors closed behind me with a heavy thud, muffling the music, the laughter, the world that had just disowned me. Outside, the night air was cold and still. I stood beneath the glowing city lights, clutching the strap of my purse like it was the only thing tethering me to this earth. For years, I had believed that if I stayed quiet, worked hard, dressed right, they would finally love me. But as the echo of laughter faded into the night, a truth settled deep inside me: they would never love me, not unless I was useful. And for the first time in my life, I stopped wanting to be. The city lights blurred past as I walked aimlessly down the street, my heels clicking against the pavement, echoing louder than the laughter still ringing in my head. The night felt endless, heavy with humiliation that clung to my skin. I stopped at a park bench, hands trembling as I scrolled through my phone, trying to steady my breath. My name, Evelyn Mercer, looked small and meaningless on the glowing screen. For a long moment, I just sat there, numb. Then, something inside me shifted. I opened my banking app, fingers hesitating above the screen. Every bill, every expense for that perfect anniversary night, the catering, the live band, the champagne tower was under my authorization. My father had asked me to handle the logistics months ago, because I was organized, because I owed them that much. The irony made me laugh quietly at first, then louder, until the sound turned into something unfamiliar. They had called me a beggar in front of hundreds of people. But the truth, the entire night ran on my accounts, my credit, my work. Their image was built on what I had quietly carried. I thought of my mother's voice. Take that trash with you. And then I saw the broken glass again, the crystal frame shattered on marble. Something in me hardened. I scrolled faster, opening apps one by one, payment portals, travel agencies, vendor dashboards. The numbers were all there. $82,000. The Mercer's perfect night. I took a deep breath, and my thumb hovered over the screen. Cancel. The word blinked back at me, daring me. I pressed it once, then again, then again. Each confirmation felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. The music, the flowers, the after-party trip to Miami, all gone with a single command. I imagined the panic that would follow the sudden calls, the confusion, the whispers. For years, I had been invisible, the quiet fixer behind every family celebration. Tonight, they'd remember exactly how much I mattered. My phone buzzed. A new notification transaction canceled. Another followed. Then, another. I looked up at the night sky, the cold wind brushing against my face, and whispered, almost to myself. They erased me, so I erased their world. Somewhere deep inside, the humiliation began to melt, not into peace, but into power. Ban la mot na bien kich chuyen thiet ke family drama stories chokan giamai. Viet Chapter 2 outline 600-word theojung. Writing style trong family drama story. Blueprint. Ki ro so chapter. Tieu jeva so tun hung kong ken mutn ho trong chapter. Huat giai teach. The knocking started before midnight sharp. Furious and unrelenting. I froze in my small apartment. The only sound, the low hum of the refrigerator and the faint buzz of my phone lighting up again and again. 35 missed calls, 15 voicemails, my mother, my father, my sister, even numbers I didn't recognize. The perfect Mercer evening had crumbled faster than their champagne bubbles. And now the fallout had found its way to my door. 3 hard knocks. Pause. Then again, I stepped closer, heart racing. Through the peephole, I saw my brother Nathan, his tuxedo jacket wrinkled, tie loose, face red with humiliation. He looked like a man who'd just watched his kingdom burn. Open the door. Evelyn, he barked, voice echoing down the hallway. What the hell did you do? I didn't move. I let him shout. Let the rage ricochet off the walls. For years, he'd been the golden son, the calm diplomat between our parents and me, always loyal to their comfort, never to truth. Tonight, that calm was gone. When I finally opened the door, I didn't invite him in. I stood there, leaning against the frame, arms crossed. Did the party stop? I asked, my voice steady. Don't play dumb, he snapped. The catering's gone. The Miami trip's canceled. Dad's furious. Mom's losing it. Do you realize what you've done? A slow smile crept across my face. Oh, I do. I just thought beggars couldn't afford to ruin $82,000 worth of your perfect life. His nostrils flared, eyes darting around the apartment like he couldn't believe I could live here and still have that much control. You'll fix this, he demanded. You'll call and undo everything, or so help me. I laughed, soft but cutting. Or what? You'll have security drag me out again. You'll call me trash in front of more people. For the first time, I saw it fear flickering behind his anger. Not fear of me, but fear of them, of what our parents' friends were saying, of how quickly the Mercer name could turn into gossip. He took a step back, his voice dropping. "You're ruining everything. Dad's clients were there. This could destroy us." I tilted my head, meeting his eyes. "You mean it could destroy them? I was destroyed a long time ago." He stared at me, speechless, then turned and stormed down the hallway, his footsteps fading into silence. When the door shut again, I leaned against it, my breath shaking not from fear, but from release. For years, they'd built their power on my silence. Tonight, that silence was gone, and for the first time, I didn't feel small. I felt seen. By morning, the city was already talking. The Mercer anniversary dinner, the grand event meant to showcase 40 years of power and perfection, had become a disaster. Photos flooded social media, half-eaten plates left on gold-rimmed tables, champagne bottles unopened, flowers missing from centerpieces. Guests posted stories about chaos, about unpaid vendors, about the night the Mercers fell apart. I sat by my apartment window, coffee in hand, watching the notifications multiply on my phone. Part of me wanted to laugh, but another part, the quiet, human part, just stared in disbelief at how fast everything could unravel. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I let it ring out. Then another call. And another. Finally. One name I recognized: Aunt Caroline. She was one of the few relatives who'd ever shown me kindness, though even she had learned to stay quiet under my mother's shadow. Her voice trembled the moment I picked up. "Evelyn, what happened last night? Your parents are saying you sabotaged the entire event." I looked out at the gray morning, the world below already moving on as if nothing had happened. "Didn't they tell you?" I said softly. "I wasn't invited." There was a long silence on the line, then a small, shocked gasp. "Oh my God," she whispered. Before hanging up, by noon, the fallout had spread beyond family circles. Richard Mercer's business partners began posting cryptic remarks, online statements about trust and accountability. A high-end event planner complained publicly about a 6-figure unpaid invoice. Reporters started circling the story, hungry for cracks in the perfect Mercer image. Meanwhile, my phone buzzed non-stop. Messages poured in, some angry, some pleading. Vivian's voice filled my voicemail again and again. "Evelyn, pick up the phone. This isn't funny. You've embarrassed us." But I didn't answer. Not yet. For years, they'd built their world on appearances, polishing every flaw, covering every mistake. I'd lived inside that illusion, hoping one day they'd see me as more than a liability. Now, that illusion was collapsing, and for once, I wasn't under it. The Mercers had spent decades controlling every headline. Now the headlines were writing themselves, and somewhere between guilt and quiet satisfaction, I realized this was only the beginning. By the second day, the Mercer name was everywhere for all the wrong reasons. Morning talk shows whispered about a society family scandal. Headlines hinted at a daughter's revenge. Online threads filled with speculation. Did she really cancel everything? Was it about money or something deeper? I sat at my kitchen table, scrolling through the chaos, half amused, half numb. The power I had never felt growing up now pulsed quietly in my hands. For once, the world wasn't laughing at me. It was questioning them. Then an email arrived from Lydia Grant, a journalist I hadn't spoken to since college. She had been one of the few people who'd ever called me brave, back when I wrote editorials about truth and integrity. Her message was short, cautious. "Evelyn, word is your family's event fell apart. Off the record. Do you want to comment?" I stared at the blinking cursor, hesitating. My first instinct was to delete it. I wasn't the kind of person who aired family pain in public. But then, neither was my mother the woman who'd called me a beggar in front of 100 people. I typed slowly, deliberately. Sometimes, the masks people wear eventually fall off. Then, I hit send. By afternoon, Lydia's article was live. She hadn't named names, but she didn't have to. Her words painted a portrait everyone could recognize, a wealthy family collapsing under the weight of their own hypocrisy. The story spread like wildfire. Richard Mercer, the man who built an empire on reputation, suddenly became the subject of scrutiny. Clients called off meetings. Investors hesitated. The company's stock slipped quietly by a few points, then more. By evening, my voicemail was full again. My father's voice hoarse, desperate. "Evelyn, whatever you've done, stop. You don't understand the damage. We need you. Please call me back." Hearing the word please from him felt like stepping into another universe. For 29 years, I had begged for acknowledgement. Now he was the one begging for mercy. But mercy was something they'd never shown me. I put my phone face down and stared at the ceiling. For a fleeting second, guilt pressed against my chest. Was I really becoming like them, cold, unfeeling, cruel? The thought made my throat tighten. Then I remembered my mother's voice echoing in the ballroom. "You don't belong here," I whispered to the empty room. You were right. The city lights shimmered outside my window. In their reflection, I didn't see a victim anymore. I saw the truth finally breaking free, and for the first time, it was on my side. The third day began in silence. No calls, no messages, just the faint hum of the city outside my apartment and the echo of my own heartbeat. I thought maybe, finally, the storm had passed. But storms don't pass that easily when they're born inside your own family. The knock came at 9:17 a.m., sharp, insistent, familiar. I froze mid-sip of my coffee, knowing before I even looked who it was. Through the peephole, I saw her, Vivian Mercer, my mother, the woman who had once run every charity gala in Boston and could turn a room of strangers into loyal admirers with a single smile. Today, that smile was gone. Her pearl necklace glimmered against her trembling throat, her eyes burning with something between fury and fear. She didn't wait for an invitation. The moment I cracked the door open, she swept inside, perfume trailing behind her like smoke. "Evelyn," she said, voice shaking. "How dare you humiliate us like this? Do you have any idea what you've done?" I stayed by the door, watching her pace the tiny living room, her heels clicking on the hardwood like gunshots. "Everyone is calling," she continued. "Friends, donors, investors, they want answers. They want blood." I took a slow breath. "Then tell them the truth." Her head snapped toward me. "Don't be naive. We said things we didn't mean. But this is beyond repair unless you fix it." "Fix it?" I repeated. "You mean, clean up after you again." Vivian's composure cracked for a moment, the mask slipping to reveal something raw, almost human. "You're our daughter. You can't do this to us." I almost laughed. "I didn't do this to you. You did this for yourselves." Her eyes darted toward the window, the faint traffic noise outside mixing with her uneven breathing. "You think this is justice ruining your own family?" I met her gaze and said quietly, "No. This is consequence. For a heartbeat." Neither of us spoke. The air between us thickened with everything left unsaid, years of rejection, invisible battles, quiet begging for love that never came. "Finally," she whispered, "you'll regret this. When everything's gone, when the world turns against you, you'll come crawling back, and we won't be there." I stepped closer until I could smell the faint trace of her perfume Chanel, the same one she wore every Sunday morning when she pretended our family was perfect. "You already cut me off?" I said softly. "Remember, you told me I didn't belong." Her jaw clenched. "You're making a mistake." "No," I said. "I'm breaking a pattern." For a second, I thought she might cry. Her eyes glistened, but pride won, like it always did. She grabbed her purse, turned on her heel, and stormed toward the door. As the door slammed shut, the air felt lighter, emptier, but lighter. Her perfume lingered like poison, fading slowly. I sank onto the couch, hands trembling. For years, I had imagined what it would feel like to finally stand up to her. I thought I'd feel triumphant, maybe even free. But what I felt was quieter, deeper grief, because beneath all that anger, a small part of me still wished she had come to say, "I'm sorry." But she hadn't. And maybe she never would. By the end of the week, the Mercer name had become a headline, not a legacy. What started as whispers now roared across every business column and gossip site in Boston. The Mercers fall from grace. A family empire crumbles. Reporters camped outside their mansion gates, cameras flashing each time the front door cracked open. From my worn-out couch, I watched it unfold like a movie I'd already seen. Richard Mercer, once the face of power and polish, now looked 10 years older in every photo, jaw tight, tie undone, fury etched across his face. My phone buzzed constantly with news alerts, each one colder than the last. Investors pulling out, partnerships dissolving, the company's shares plummeting. And then, late one night, the video surfaced. Someone had recorded my father storming out of a restaurant, shouting into his phone, his words loud and unmistakable. "My own daughter ruined me. Do you hear me?" My daughter. The internet devoured it. Comment sections exploded. What did she do? Why would a father say that? And for once, I wasn't the villain of the story. The world saw them for who they were, and it didn't look glamorous anymore. A part of me wanted to feel triumphant, to soak in the satisfaction I thought I'd been craving, but watching them unravel didn't bring the peace I expected. It felt strange, like revenge had burned too hot, leaving behind only smoke and emptiness. I remembered Vivian's face from that morning, the cracks in her mask, the tremor in her voice. Beneath all her cruelty was fear, fear of losing control, fear of being seen without the armor of perfection. And for the first time, I realized I wasn't angry anymore. I was just done. I turned off my phone and let the silence fill the room. Outside, the wind howled against the windows, rattling the glass. Somewhere, the world was laughing at the Mercers, dissecting every detail of their downfall. But I didn't join in. I just stared at the darkened skyline and whispered to myself, they taught me that love was a transaction. I just ended the deal. And in that quiet, something inside me shifted from revenge to release. The storm wasn't over yet, but I was finally ready to stop standing in the rain. The rain came first soft at dawn, furious by evening. By the time the knocking started, it had turned into a storm that seemed to shake the building itself. I stood by the window, staring at the blur of city lights beyond the glass, when the pounding grew louder, relentless, desperate. I didn't need to look to know who it was. When I opened the door, both of them were there, Richard and Vivian Mercer. The parents who once sparkled under ballroom chandeliers now looked like ghosts of themselves. My father's expensive suit was soaked through, his tie hanging limp around his neck. My mother's mascara had bled into dark streaks down her cheeks. For a moment, no one spoke. The sound of rain filled the space between us like another voice, accusing us all. "Evelyn," my father rasped, his voice barely holding steady. "Please, we can't take this anymore. You've destroyed us." I stepped aside wordlessly, letting them in. The sight of them in my small apartment surrounded by peeling paint, a chipped coffee table. The quiet hum of a broken heater was almost surreal. They didn't belong here, not in this world stripped of their grandeur. My mother clutched her designer purse like a life raft. "We went too far," she said finally. "What we said at the dinner, it was cruel." "We shouldn't have," I interrupted softly. "You didn't just humiliate me. Mother, you erased me. For years." Her lips trembled, and for the first time in my life, she had no defense. My father leaned forward, his hands shaking. "We'll make it right. We'll rebuild. Just help us fix this. Reverse the cancellations. Tell the press it was a misunderstanding. I laughed, quiet, bitter, and tired. A misunderstanding. You publicly called me a beggar. You made me a stranger in my own family. Neither of them spoke. The silence was heavy. Their confidence evaporated. The people who had once stood above me now looked smaller than I had ever seen them. I don't owe you my silence anymore, I said, standing tall. I don't owe you protection. You built your world on lies, and the truth is finally speaking. My mother's eyes welled with tears. We just wanted everything to look perfect, she whispered. We didn't think I cut her off gently. You didn't think I was worth loving unless I made you look better. They looked crushed, their pride shattered under the weight of my words. My father's voice broke one last time. If you stand with us, people will forgive. I shook my head slowly. You taught me that love was conditional, that it had to be earned with obedience and silence. I'm done learning that lesson. I walked to the door and opened it. Cold rain spilled in from the hallway. You told me I didn't belong in your world, I said quietly. Now it's your turn. They stood frozen, eyes wide with disbelief. Then, slowly, they stepped out into the storm. When the door closed, I leaned against it, breath trembling. Outside, thunder rolled across the city, but inside, for the first time, there was peace. Days passed, and the Mercers' downfall settled like dust after a storm. Their mansion stood dark, the grand gates locked, the fountain outside drained and silent. News outlets moved on to the next scandal. But the echo of their collapse lingered across the city like a cautionary tale. From my apartment window, I watched life go on the world indifferent to the fall of a family that once thought it ruled it. My phone buzzed occasionally with new headlines: investors pulling out, board members resigning, auction listings for the Mercer estate. I didn't click any of them. I didn't need to. I already knew how the story ended. One message, though, caught my eye. It was from Lydia Grant, the journalist who'd written the first article. People are calling it poetic justice, she wrote. I stared at the words, unsure how to respond. Poetic justice sounded too grand for what this really was. It wasn't vengeance or victory. It was truth, the kind that no longer needed to scream to be heard. Finally. I typed back, it wasn't revenge. It was truth finding its way home. I hit send, then turned off my phone. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of the city outside. For the first time in years, the silence didn't feel lonely. It felt earned, like exhaling after holding your breath for a lifetime. The Mercers had lost everything, and I had finally found myself. Night fell softly over the city, washing the skyline in silver and shadow. I sat by the window, the blinds half open, watching the quiet lights blink like distant promises. The storm had passed, leaving behind a strange stillness that felt both foreign and freeing. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel the need to prove anything to be enough, to be seen, to be accepted. The chaos had stripped everything down to the truth, and beneath it all, I found something simple but unshakable peace. I thought of my parents, Richard and Vivian Mercer, wondering if they were still fighting to save what was left, or if they'd finally stopped pretending. Maybe, in their own way, they were beginning to understand the lesson too late that love built on fear will always crumble. I stood, closed the blinds, and turned off the lights. The apartment sank into darkness, calm and whole. For years, I believed revenge would heal me. It didn't. Letting go did. As I lay in bed, the city breathing quietly outside, one final thought drifted through me like a prayer. Poetic justice wasn't their ruin. It was my peace.